Okay, so a lot of people have been asking how they should learn to prepare for Chidon Tanach. How can they learn in a way that will allow them to do well? What should they be looking for while they learn? So we're going to look today at a couple of things. First of all, we're going to talk about how you should learn, as we just said. We're going to talk about some resources that can help you. But the truth is, the most important two resources that I bet you already have in your house are a regular Chumash. Art scroll is fine, any Chumash, probably with English, I would imagine, for most of you, most of us, as well as a brain, right? If you have a Chumash and a brain, you'll probably do fine. And I'm going to show you today how you can use your brain and a Chumash to predict many of the Chidon questions. And even if you don't predict the exact questions that they ask, by learning in a way that anticipates those questions, you'll still be improving your learning. Even if you don't get the exact questions, you will have trained yourself to learn well enough that you'll do well on the actual questions, even if you can't predict the exact questions. So let's begin with the beginning of Shemot. So the first thing I notice, if you look in a Chumash, or I have it here on the screen, is that from the beginning of the book until Pasuk Zayin is a unit. You have a pei at the end of it. You might have a samech sometimes. Pei is a different types. Pei and samach are different types of endings in the Chumash. Those are the real prakim, not the. But you can learn till the end of a Perek. You can learn till the end of an Aliyah. You can learn till the end of a Parsha. Any of those are fine. Any of those will give you a unit to chew on or to think about. I don't mean to learn an entire Parsha. I mean, if you learn from near the end of a Parsha until the end of a Parsha, that will be a unit as well. So probably about 7 to 10 Pesukim at a time before you begin to think about them, before you begin to analyze them. That's probably the right amount. And I'll show you in just a second how to analyze them. But let's see. So what do we have here? Ve'ela Shemot Bnei Israel. These are the names of the Jews. Habaim Mitzrayma. This is the beginning of the Sefer Shemot. These are the names of the Jews who went down to Mitzrayim. Eid Yaakov, Yishuvei Tuvo. From Yaakov, each one with their family. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, Benyamin. Let me get my cursor. Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Va'asher. These are all the tribes. Vayhi Kol Nefesh Yotzei Yerech Yaakov. And all of the souls that came out of the family of Yaakov were 70 people. Yosef Hayab in Mitzrayim, and Yosef was in Mitzrayim. Vayamot Yosef, and Yosef died. V'chol Achav, all his brothers died. V'chol Adarhu, the whole generation died. Uvnei Yisrael paru vayishritzu vayirbu vayatzmu b'mod ma'od. But the Jews became many, and they multiplied, and they became strong, very, very much so. Vatim aleha aretzotam, and the earth filled with them. So I do a cursory reading of these Pesukim. Right? So far, I'm not analyzing. I'm noticing the story. I'm noticing trends. Right? In my mind, I say, okay, I get it. You have the names, or you have the names. Before that, you have the fact that the Jews went down to Mitzrayim from Yaakov. You have the names of the tribes, 70. We're going to pick up on that in a minute. Yosef died. Everybody died, and then they became many, and they became strong. They became like insects, right? Multiplying so many. Yishrisu. They were crawling, teeming. I guess would be a nicer way to say it. Teeming, multiplying, becoming very strong, and they filled the entire earth. Okay. Now, what might the Chidon people ask about those Pesukim? First of all, they might ask nothing, right? It's a big book, and they might not ask if there's only 30. There's 3 tests a year, and there's 30 questions per test. So clearly, you're not going to have a question on every pasuk. They might not ask anything on the whole first parak, for all I know. So first of all, they might ask nothing. But if they were going to ask any questions on these Pesukim, here are some examples of what they might ask about these Pesukim. So first of all, in Pasuk K, it said, "Vayhi kol nefesh yotzei Yerech Yaakov shiv'im." All of the people that came out of the family, or all of the loins of Yaakov, were 70, and 70 souls. Yosef Hayab Mitzrayim, and Yosef was in Mitzrayim. So I read this, and knowing how Chidon people think, I pick up on this word 70. This is a detail that they could easily ask about. They could pinpoint it. So how can this isolated fact be turned into a question? Well, there's 4 ways. Because every Chidon question is multiple choice. So 70 could be the A option of 70, 80, 90, 100, A, B, C, D, or it could be the D option of 40, 50, 60, 70, option A, option B, option C, option D, or it could be the C option, option A, B, C, D, or it could be the C option or the B option if you did A, B, C, D. In other words, 70 is clearly a number that they can easily isolate and ask a question about. And if it's going to be on the list, it could either be the beginning of a list, option A, it could be the end of the list, option D, or somewhere in between. So let me show you how they might ask the question. I made up this question, but I'm pretty sure that they could ask a very similar question to this. They're very predictable. Kama anashim, how many people, Yatsu, went out, Miyerach Yaakov, from the loins of Yaakov? How many people were from Yaakov's family? Right? And the way I gave it to you is the C option is our Shivim, 70. So you have 50, 60, 70, 80. So if we go back to here, right, I gave it to you in the form of option A, option B, option C, and option D. Right? If they're going to ask about Shivim, that's really the only thing they're going to do. 90% sure. You never know, but I'm 95% sure that this is the question they would ask if they ask about the question, if they ask about 70. Of course, they could not ask about that pasuk at all. But if they ask anything about 70, it would look something like this. Kama anashim, how many people yatsu miyerach Yaakov, chamishim, shishim, shivim, or shmonim? I suppose they could ask, 20, 70, 130, and 300, but most likely they'll do it in this form. Right? So what I've done so far is I've read the pasuk. I noticed this detail about 70. I said, 70, interesting. 70, well, if they're going to ask about that, the question they would form is how many people came out of the family of Yaakov, were there in the family of Yaakov, and 70 is option C. Now, there's two ways you could know that. If you learned only in Hebrew, and hopefully you understood what you were reading also, but if your learning was mainly in Hebrew, then the number would stick out at you, Shivim. And I matched that up with the Shivim that I learned when I was learning for Chidon, and I see Shivim on the list, right? That's definitely an option. But even if you focused mainly on the English, you'd say, well, I remember that there were 70, because I read it in English, and I remember that 70 people came out of the family of Yaakov. And 70 is over here in option C. This is 50, this is 60, that's 70, that's 80. It must be option C. So there's two ways to come at the answer. Either you could remember it from reading it in Hebrew, and you remember that Shivim jumps out in your mind, or you could know that from the content perspective, from the perspective of the what the Chumash means, you remember that 70 was the answer, and then 70 is right here in option C. Shivim. Okay, let's look at one more. We're going to look at two more, actually. But here's another one. Repeating words and phrases. This is the big thing for Chidon people, for the people writing the test. Uvenei Yisrael, this was pasuk Zayin that we saw before. Uvenei Yisrael, the Jews, paru, they became many, or they vayishritzu, they teamed. Vayirbu, they became many. Vayasmu, they became very strong. V'mod, very, very much so. Vatimoleha artzotam. So this list, the fact that there's a list of similar things, provides the Chidon people, meaning the people writing the Chidon test, with an opportunity. And here's the opportunity. We can play the game of which of these things is not like the other, right? Back in our old days of watching Sesame Street. In other words, which of these things is not on the list, or not on the original list, on this list? Which of these options is not on the original list from back in Chumash? Let's see. Ma lo kara, what did not happen, L'vnei Israel, to the Jews, b'ma'od ma'od, very much so, kishahayu b'Mizrayim, when they were in Mizrayim. Well, number one is Yishritzu. They teamed. Number two is Yatzmu. Again, I made these questions up. Yatzmu, they became very strong. Yigdalu, they became very great. Or Paru, they became many. All right, so if you remember, I'll give you a minute to think about it, or you can pause the video and think about it. But you'll probably remember that it is C, right? If you learn the pasuk, this one might jump out in your mind as being not correct. The word yigdalu does not appear in the pasuk. It's not crazy. It's not a crazy possibility that the pasuk could have said by yigdalu. When the pasuk said Uvnei Yisrael, the Jews did this and this and this, it kind of sounds like that. But again, similar to the last question, there's two ways you could know this. Number one is, I don't remember seeing that word in the pasuk. It doesn't sound familiar. That would be how you would come to the answer if you were mainly learning in Hebrew. If you were learning in Hebrew and English, or mainly in English, I suppose, then you might remember that Yishritzu means to team. I remember that they teamed, right? Yatzmu means that they were strong. I remember that they were strong. Jumping to number D, Paru, they became many. I remember that they became many. But this Yigdalu, they became big or great. Gee, I don't remember seeing anything in the English when I was learning for Chidon about them becoming big or great. So Yigdalu is the right answer. You might remember it from the verbiage, right? If you were learning the Hebrew, the word might not jump out at you as having been there, Yigdalu, which is a clue. That's perfectly fine. Or if you learned in English, you might say, well, gosh, I don't remember there being anything in this pasuk about becoming great or becoming big, Yigdalu, Gadol. But I remember that they became many, I remember that they teamed, and I remember that they became strong. So either of those options, whether you're learning in Hebrew or in Hebrew and English, or in English, either of those options will work. Here's another option, but here's asked in the opposite way. So here they're picking up on the same detail about this list of words, but here is in a different, I asked it backwards. Ma kara, this one was ma lo kara. What did not happen? So only one of these options was wrong, because this happened, and this happened, and this happened, but number C did not happen. But if we go to this option, this way of asking the same question, 3 of these options are going to be wrong, and one of them is going to be right, because it says ma kara, what did happen? L'vnei Yisrael, to the Jews, very much so, when they were in Mitzrayim. Yigdalu again is wrong. They became great or many. Gee, I don't remember that in the pasuk. Yatzmu, they became strong. Yeah, that does sound familiar. Becoming strong. Yikanu, they became jealous. That doesn't really even make sense. Yishtalu, I think I made up that word. I don't know what that would mean. So the only word here that it would work, again, which of these is not like the other, or I guess in this case, 3 of them are incorrect. So this one is not like the other ones. Yatzmu is correct, because that's, first of all, it's in the pasuk. And second of all, it's the only one that is true. They became strong. Otzem, they became strong. They didn't become jealous. They didn't become whatever that means, and they didn't become big, or at least not in the words of the pasuk. Okay, here's a chidon about the chidon. I'm going to give you a chance here to think of what question might be on the chidon about the red words below. Back to pasuk A. Vayikol nefesh Yosei erech Yaakov, all the people who came out of the family of Yaakov, Shivim nefesh, were 70. V'Yosef haya b'Mitzrayim, and Yosef was in Mitzrayim. So what might the chidon people ask? So I'll give you a hint. The hint is, what connection is there between those words, Yosef haya b'Mitzrayim, Yosef was in Mitzrayim, and the earlier part of the pasuk, Vayikol nefesh, that there were 70 people who came out of the family of Yaakov? What connection is there? And also, why is the pasuk telling us these words, and why is it telling us here? So based on that connection, maybe pause the video and think about what question the chidon people might ask about that. Okay, I assume you've unpaused the video. So let's look at it. Here's the possible chidon question. Lama Yosef lo nimneh. Why was Yosef not counted, or nimna? Why was Yosef not counted b'toch achav, among his brothers? Well, 4 possible reasons. First of all, hu haya b'Mitzrayim, because he was in Mitzrayim. That does sound familiar. Let's try number 2. Hu haya mishneh lamelech Paro. He was the second in command to Paro. Okay, I mean that's true, but it's not why he was not counted. Number 3, hu haya ben shel Rachel. He was the son of Rachel. True again. Hu haya, number 4, hu haya ben zikeno shel Yaakov. He was the youngest son, or he was considered to be the youngest son for a while of Yaakov. All of those are true. He was the youngest son. He was Rachel's son. He was the second in command to Paro. He was in Mitzrayim. But only one of these is given as the reason, or at least implied in the pasuk strongly as being the reason, that Yosef was not counted among his brothers. Let's go back and see. All of the people who went out of the family of Yaakov were 70 people, and Yosef was not when Yosef was in Mitzrayim. So the pasuk seems to be telling us, there's a little bit of a leap here, but not a crazy leap. The pasuk seems to be telling us that the reason Yosef is not on the list of those 70 people is because he was already in Mitzrayim, right? You're supposed to be surprised if you're reading the Chumash and say, oh my goodness, why is Yosef not listed here? And the reason is because he was in Mitzrayim already. This is a list of people who went down to Mitzrayim. If we look back at the beginning, it's a list of people who went down, Haba'i Mitzrayim, who went down to Mitzrayim. So Yosef was not counted on the list of 70 because he was already in Mitzrayim. If we go back to our question, why was Yosef not counted among his brothers, meaning among the people who went down to Mitzrayim? Because he was already in Mitzrayim. Okay, that's correct. The others are true, but irrelevant to our discussion here. What's relevant is he was already in Mitzrayim. So again, you might base your answer on logic. You might base it on reading the Chumash and just remembering the detail, having already read the Chumash before the Chidon, obviously before the test, and remembering that the reason that he didn't go down is because he was in Mitzrayim. So again, you have a detail being picked up, and there's a leap being made, not a crazy leap, but a leap that the fact that these two parts of the pasuk are in the same pasuk is because it's telling you that the reason he was not counted among the 70 is because he was in Mitzrayim. And hence the question, why was Yosef not counted among his brothers? And the answer would be A, because he's already in Mitzrayim. The others are true, but not relevant. Okay. I want to quickly show you a couple of resources that will help you. But again, the more you learn and the more you get practice with picking up on that, you don't necessarily need a lot of resources, and I wouldn't count on them. I think doing it yourself is better. It's more meaningful. I think it'll be more lasting and more successful. But I'll show you a good resource. ChidonUSA.wordpress.com. Again, you can see it here, ChidonUSA.wordpress.com, which has, and I'm going to click on exams, right? In the top middle here, exams. Then I'm learning Shemot. So I'm going to go down. I see in 2016, a couple of years ago, they learned Vayikra, Bamidbar, Shemot, Shmuel Bet, Ezra. That's not going to help me right now. I'm learning Shemot. Okay, so I'm not going to click on that. 2009 regional exam, Devarim, Shoftim, Rut, Eov. Well, Eov will help me later in the year, but right now I'm learning Shemot. It's not going to help. Let's see, 2010, Bereshit, Shmuel, Tehillim, Yechezkel, no Shemot. But 2011, they apparently did learn Shemot. Right? I see Shemot on the list, 2011, so that's helpful. So now I have this list of tests from 2011. The one I'm going to click on is Test 1 Junior High. JH is Junior High, meaning middle school. So I'm going to click on Test 1 Junior High. And this is going to be from the first several prakim of the book of Shemot. Let's wait for it to come up here. It's coming. Oh, there it is. Ma BK. Okay, so here are questions. They're probably 30. I think they still have 25 questions. The answers are at the end, very helpful. Okay, at the end you have an answer key, Sheila, Tshuva, and even a source. You can look it up. But again, I wouldn't be too married to these kinds of questions because they're not going to be the exact questions. Or memorizing these questions will not help you that much. They're not going to ask the exact same questions on this year's Chidon. I guarantee it. But it's still helpful to go through them because if you can do them well, then that will mean that you have learned well. That will mean that you have learned thoroughly, and that's a good sign, right? If you can do all of these, there's a good chance you'll be able to answer the questions that they do ask, right? They're not going to ask these questions, but if you learn well enough to do well on these questions, the likelihood is great that you will do well on the questions that they do ask. So, Ma bikesh Paro mi'ha mi'aldot. What did Paro request from the nurse wives? Again, these are exact quotes from the Pesukim, not the Pesukim we learned, but later I think it's Perek Bet. Right, this is a Havan et Chak below. Come, let's be smart with them. No, that's what Paro says to the Egyptians in Perek Aleph. It's right after the Pesukim we were learning. Im benhu, if he's a son, v'hamitan oto, kill him. V'im bat hi v'chaya, and if she's a girl, you can let her live. right? That's correct. Go to your labors. No, loto sifun latate. Don't give them straw anymore, right? So 3 of these options are wrong. First of all, you might remember the phrasing, but you also might just say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would Paro tell the nurse wives to go to their work, right? Or to tell them how we should be smart with them, or we should stop giving them straw for bricks. They can make their own bricks. Fine, maybe, but if it's a son, kill him, and if it's a daughter, you should let her live. Of course, that's totally something Paro would tell the Miyaldot, would tell the nurse wives. So even if you don't remember the exact phrasing from the Chumash, if you didn't learn in Hebrew so many times that you remember the phrasing, that's the only one that makes sense that Paro would tell the nurse wives. Kama banot hayul Yitro. How many daughters did Yitro have? Right? It sounds a lot like my question of 70, right? 70 souls went down to Mitzrayim. So again, I have no idea on this year's Chidon if they will ask questions from the first 7 Pesukim of Shemot, right? Probably not. I would imagine they will not. And there's nothing even here from Perek Aleph. This is Perek Bet. This, I think, is Perek Gimel or Dalid, probably Gimel, when he goes to see Yitro, right, his father-in-law, right? Lama. So you can access this yourself. You go to Chidon USA. Here's the exact link for this test. You can see it right here. chidonUSA.files.wordpress.com/2013/05 test 1 JH, where you can see it right here. But so that's an example of how to get a test. 25 questions. Again, I wouldn't be married to these exact questions. They're not going to ask these questions on the Chidon. Of course not. They asked them 2 years ago. They would never do that. But if you know these questions, that will be a good sign for you that you've learned well enough to do well on the questions that they do ask. Let me go back and see if there's any others, right? Could be a few years before that. They had Shemot again or before it. No. You can also see down here, there's some links that they give you for other things. If you have a smartphone, which I assume all your parents do, I don't know about the kids, but if you have a smartphone, I can't put it on the screen. I don't have the ability to do that, but there's a very good app on the, for Droid, I assume it's for Apple too, and it's called Harishon Bechidon. Let me type this for you. Let's do it here. The app is called Great App. Harishon Bechidon. It's in the Droid, the Play Store, probably on Apple also. Harishon Bechidon. It's a great app. It has sample questions for all of Tanakh. It has games. It has quizzes. It's really a lot of fun. Fill in the blanks, searching. It's really a tremendous, tremendous resource. So if you have a smartphone, that's a nice thing to get. It couldn't hurt. Those are a couple of resources, as well as some thoughts on how to learn for Chidon. And also, besides all of that, besides those resources, I will be sharing with you throughout the year sample questions, kind of like what I've done here. Again, I'll be sharing with you and your child sample questions on the part of Chidon that they should be up to at that time, which again, I can't guarantee those exact questions will be on Chidon, but if you can do those, then that will be a good indicator that you are going to do well, or better anyway, on the test. I usually predict them pretty close. I've gotten them on the nose a couple of times, but it doesn't really matter, because as soon as you can start to think like this, pinpointing questions that they would ask, then even if you don't get the exact questions, you will be using your time learning productively as far as Chidon goes. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'm sure we'll be in touch throughout the year.